Hello and welcome back to my channel. First and foremost, welcome to my new office. This is the space where I sit and work all day, so I'm sat at my desk with my desk set up. That might mean that I sound a little echoey. I'm using quite a sophisticated desk microphone, um, but I am in a room that is basically empty, so there's a lot of echoes around. So first and foremost, apologies if that's disturbing to you. I won't know until I've finished recording this and editing it how bad it is or isn't. So we're just going to bear with and think of this as a new experiment and a new trial. If this is the first time that you have joined me in my channel, then welcome. And if you are a returning viewer, welcome back. It's so lovely to have you in my world for a little bit. This is a new format of video I'm doing over the winter particularly. I'm doing a little bit less gardening and renovation content and just a little bit more life stuff just to check in and see how we're all doing over the winter. Obviously, it is only the winter in the Northern Hemisphere. If you're watching this from other parts of the world, you're probably enjoying much nicer weather than me. We have had quite a lot of weather. It snowed a couple of weeks ago. Well, just over a week ago. Last weekend it snowed. I didn't film a video last week for the first time in ages because of the snow and because I also had a cold and wasn't feeling very well. But the garden was completely covered in snow and I was not prepared, hadn't thought to do any garden protection or frost protection or anything. I'm quite happy with how well the garden has survived, but I'm going to need to do some intervention for future. We've also had storms. It's been really wet, windy, rainy. It's been really awful. So a lot of inside things. So to keep up to date with you all, I thought I would do just an end of month roundup type video. I'm just going to talk to you from my desk here for a while. If I am very clever, I might figure out how to insert some video that I took of the garden in the snow and some of the outings that I've been on a little bit later. So again, editing Rachel will try to figure out how to share some of that with you in a way that makes sense in this video. But otherwise, this is going to be a monthly wrap-up video of all of the things that I've been up to that's not been in the garden and not been part of the renovation. And I thought that I would share with you my top recommendations or just things that I have read, watched, crafted, made, baked, cooked, etc. So I have 4 categories, things that I want to share with you, plus some just other stuff that I've been up to. And that is the plan for today. So without further ado, I'm going to start with what I have been reading. In the month of November, I have read 2 books. These are both books that I got from the library, so I've already taken them back. The first book was Casting Off by Elizabeth Jane Howard. This is book 4 in the Cazalet Chronicles, and I have been making my way through the Cazalet Chronicles for probably most of this year. I think I started the first one last year. If you're not familiar with this series of books, there are 5 books in the series. They were written in the early 90s, but they're set in the UK between after the First World War and sort of up to the first decade after the Second World War. So I think the final book finishes like at the end of the 50s or the 60s. I'm not there yet. I don't know. So this was the 4th installment. We are working our way through the end of the war and the immediate post-war period in Britain, as told by the perspective of the Cazalet family and their close friends, I suppose. So it's you are switching first person perspectives through various family members through the stories. And I absolutely love these books. I recommend them to everyone. If you need a warm hug in a book, then the Cazalet Chronicles are for you. They just have all of the warm, comfy nostalgia that I love whenever I am in a place in my mind that I'm struggling with. I really want to just be in this sort of cozy 1940s sort of era in my reading. I will go back to the variety of different authors that I will go back to that were writing at that time or about that time. Elizabeth Jane Howard is such a fabulous author. I can't recommend her enough. I really feel like she's an unsung genius of writing. She really makes you feel part of the moment. She's not afraid to bring you into some places of discomfort. The story doesn't always tackle those head on. Sometimes it's really subtle, a real sort of subtext of tragedy, loss, longing, confusion. And I just love it. I'm so sad that the next book in the series is the last book, but I'm already planning on going back and rereading the whole series. So yes, the Casting Off from by Elizabeth Jane Howard was the first book that I read in the month of November. I'll just bring up the second book. The second book I read this month was Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. This is the second book. I can't remember the name of the series, but the first book was Fourth Wing. It's a fantasy novel. It's based in a world where there are dragons and griffins and magic of all kinds. It's kind of like, and I'm not the first person to say this, I know, but it is always what I think about it. It's a bit more like a Fast and a Furious type movie. It's very adrenaline packed, lots of things happening all the time. I really loved Fourth Wing. It had just the right amount of everything for me to be exciting. There was drama, there was betrayal, there was secrets, there was lies, there was conspiracy, romance, all the things, all the things. I think I read that book in 2 days. Um, and I immediately reserved the Iron Flame from the library so that I could read it as soon as possible. And I dived into it expecting it to be as good, and it's not. Not that it is terrible. There are bits about it that are questionable. But I felt like it was written to be too much of the same as Fourth Wing. It is a book, it follows the similar sort of story arc. It's trying to get the same sort of highs and lows in. And because it's trying so hard, it doesn't have the same authenticity. So it was a good book. I enjoyed reading it. I will continue reading the series, I'm sure, but I'm not as desperate for the third book in the series as I was for the second. Um, I have a sneaking suspicion that it might be a series that burns itself out a little bit because it has developed a lot of notoriety. It's been all over sort of Bookstagram and Book Talk and other things, and there's really, really popular. But yeah, the ending of Iron Flame actually was the best part about it, not because it was over, but just because it set it up for the next installment in a really nice way, and I'm actually looking forward to find out where it goes. But I was bored by quite a lot of the middle, and it's a bit longer than the first book and not quite as exciting. But I am glad I read it. Um, I have already started my next book. I have another book on Kindle. I won't talk to you about those. I'll do this again in December and hope to have finished them. But I do want to talk to you about what I've been listening to. Um, I listen to a lot of audiobooks. Bear with while I bring them up. I mostly listen to audiobooks to go to sleep at night, so I listen to the same audiobooks over and over and over again because it's kind of like white noise for me when I'm sleeping. But I do have an Audible subscription and I do have 1 credit a month, which I agonize over how to spend. But there's a couple of series that I'm following, and this month I finished. the Shadow Rising, which is the fourth installment of the Wheel of Time saga by Robert Jordan. The audible narration that I listened to was narrated by Rosamund Pike, and these audiobooks are tied into the Amazon Prime TV series of the Wheel of Time. So when they release new series, or they're preparing to release new series, they release some new installments of the audiobook. And I just think that Rosamund Pike's narration is superb. She has a beautiful voice to listen to. She is a fantastic character actor. She can do all the voices. She really inhabits all of the characters. These are long books. They're sort of, how long is this? It's 41 hours and 13 minutes long, of just Rosamund Pike narrating. I can't even imagine how long it took her to record them, but they're superb. So yes, let me show you the picture. It's a bit blurry. Sorry about that. So that's really good. I am a bit torn. I don't know when or if they're going to release a fifth installment with Rosamund Pike narrating. So do I want to switch to the original audiobooks, which were released quite a long time ago? And the narrators I think, are American, where Rosamund Pike narrates in a British accent, or accent as appropriate for the character, um, just to get to the end of the stories. I've never read the books, so I am learning the story as the narration goes on. So yeah, if you know this series and you would recommend the versions that are not narrated by Rosamund Pike, please let me know. The other audiobook that I finished this month was from the Audible were from the Audible Unlimited catalogue, and it was a dramatized version of Agatha Christie's The Mysterious Affair at Styles. If you are an Agatha Christie fan, The Mysterious Affair at Styles is Hercule Poirot's first case that we see as his followers, his audience. And the dramatization has a lot of really interesting people in it. Hercule Poirot is played by Peter Dinklage, who you will probably know and love from Game of Thrones and other things. And Captain Hastings is Himesh Patel, and then there's a full cast to go with them. And it's a really, really good dramatization. I really enjoyed it. I struggle a lot with the Audible Unlimited catalogue. There's not often many things in it that I want to listen to, or if there are, it's like book 3 of a series, and you have to buy books 1 and 2 to find out before book 3 makes sense and things. So that was a really good one, and I would recommend you both all read or listen to both of them. The next segment, I'm going to share with you the things that I've been watching on TV or on film. Actually, it's not any films. I haven't watched any films. I don't watch huge amounts of television, and my preferred television series are massive box sets, like decades worth of a TV series that I've never watched or I'm rewatching. And on that note, the first TV series that I have watched, or I have finished watching, actually, I completed the box set, was the ITV dramatizations of Agatha Christie's Hercule Poirot. These are available on ITVX. If I am in any way capable of editing my video, I might do a little picture of that up in the corner, setting myself up for failure. Um, There is 13 series, and I think they do manage to do all, or very nearly all, the Hercule Poirot stories. I remember watching these as a child. That's how long they've been going on. And I started rewatching all of the series on demand through ITVX at the back end of the summer, and I finished watching all of them in a little bit earlier this month. Hercule Poirot is played by David Suchet throughout the entire series, and he is just spectacular. He is the Hercule Poirot as far as I'm concerned. And what was nice is that I have rewatched some, and but the last series I hadn't seen very many, so I was watching them for the first time, and particularly Curtain, which is Poirot's last case. It was very emotional. That was my first show. My second show that I just loved, and I watched the whole thing on BBC iPlayer in just a couple of days, was a series called Ludwig, which stars. Hang on, I've forgotten their names. I'm going to look it up. It stars David Mitchell and Anna Maxwell Martin, who are both, that's the picture on iPlayer. Just spectacular. It's a little bit of an ode to the traditional sitting room murder style, which was really nice off the back of watching so many episodes of Poirot. Um, but it's set in modern times and is about a man who is quite a recluse. He doesn't get out much, he's quite introverted and frightened of the world. And his profession is he's a professional puzzle setter. His identical twin brother is a policeman and goes missing. And Ludwig is called by his sister-in-law and dragged out of his isolation to help her solve the mystery of what has happened to her husband, and comedy ensues. So it was really, really good. I think it's 6, 8, maybe 10 episodes. I watched them in about 3 days. They were so good. So yeah, Ludwig on BBC. I watched it via BBC iPlayer. It might be available elsewhere. I don't know. The other two series that I'm watching at the moment are both released weekly, so I'm just sort of getting one episode a week, or if I miss one, a couple of episodes at a time. And that is Grey's Anatomy on the Disney Channel. I have on and off followed Grey's since it first came out. It's a long time ago. We're on like series 21, 22, maybe more, going a long time. And I have watched every episode. I think when I first got Disney, or possibly on through Amazon Prime at some point, I'm not sure. But I went back and watched all the box sets. So yeah, there's a lot of Grey's Anatomy to get through, but I'm keeping up with the current series. I'm not convinced that the quality is quite the same. Um, but yeah, it's a habit now. Can't get rid of it. And the other series is Shetland, which is also on the BBC. Again, I watch it through BBC iPlayer. Um, Shetland is a police drama set in the Shetland Isles in Scotland, or off the coast of Scotland. Very rural, very isolated, beautiful landscapes. Um, and the police station there has to deal with probably disproportionate volume of murders to real life. It was again, it's a long running series. There've been, I can't remember exactly what series this is on, maybe 8 or 9. And last series they did a cast change. So the lead actor departed, and they've slightly reformatted the show to accommodate new actors and new perspectives, and I'm really loving the. It's not a reboot, but I'm just really loving what they've done with it, and the fact that they've been able to keep it going, and it sort of still has the same warmth and the same heart that it had before, even with an alternate cast. It's doing really good. Um, so yeah, those are my TV and film choices for this month. Next up, I'm going to talk to you about crafts or works in progress. Haven't quite decided what the best description of that is. Um, I am not a huge crafter, but I am a knitter. And I currently have two knitting projects on the go. The first one is in this project bag. This is not going to become a knitting podcast. I kind of was a bit nervous about talking to you about these things because there's a whole section of YouTube which is just dedicated to people talking about their knitting, and that's not what's happening here. This is just sort of something that I do on the side. So this is going to be an infinity scarf. I have knit this much of it. This was a new cast on this month. So that tells you about how much knitting I get done at any given moment. Even though I have about 100 knitting projects waiting. And then the other project, now this project is also a scarf. I do like to knit scarves and shawls. I have knit a lot of them. But this one is a project that I have been working on for years. I cast this on in May of 2021. And it is a radiant rainbow scarf. It's knit on really small needles. If you know about needles, these are 4mm needles using 4-ply or sock weight yarn. It's 600 stitches wide, and I'm using linen stitch. So it's a really, really stretchy, but really, really closely woven fabric. And it takes forever. I knit on this exclusively for about 6 months, and I got nowhere, and it was really disheartening. So I've put it in the bucket of something that I just pick up as and when, and I do a row here and a row there. I'm also making tassels, so every row I have to cut and then rework in the yarn, which makes it even more arduous than it would have been otherwise. But I am getting near the end. I'm just gonna knit. I just knit it until this ball of yarn has run out. And yeah. I finally see light at the end of the tunnel. But if I'm honest, I cannot wait for this project to be over because it is really grueling. I really wanted to talk to you about a different project. I wanted to have made some progress by the time I recorded this video on my upcycling project of a chest of drawers. I've got one of the drawers. Which way do I go to make this work? There. One of the drawers is there behind me, waiting for the next phase. But I haven't done it, so this is me holding myself accountable to have some progress on that to share with you next time. Otherwise, this month has been quite busy. I have been out and about quite a lot. I have been out to the theatre with some friends. We had dinner and we went to see a comedy show, British comedian called Kiri Pritchard McLean. She's on tour with her one-woman stand-up show Peacock. It's a really, really fabulous show. Kiri is so smart and so clever. She does podcasts, she's on TV, she has a couple of radio shows. She's a director of a sketch group. Like, she's a really hard working person, and she is just superb. I followed her for a really, really long time, but this is the first time I've been able to see her live. So really enjoyed going to the theatre to see that. And then, related to my knitting projects, I also went to the knitting and stitching show in Harrogate at the weekend. Um, the was in the middle of the storm. So people were being advised not to travel, but my friend and I braved it anyway. Turned out the weather wasn't all that bad. Um, and it was so interesting. I've never been to any kind of show like that before. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if it was just going to be a giant shopping trip or more like a museum experience. And it was kind of a bit of both. It was really interesting. There were lots of different crafts there. There's lots of guilds of things. So many things that I discovered there are guilds of, like beadwork, I think, and needlework and quilters and things of that nature. There were a lot of artists showing off their fabric or textile artwork and available to chat to you about them. There was obviously shopping and trade stands, and there were exhibitions of competitions. So, like, particularly for the quilts, big displays of quilts that have won awards and prizes over the year. So it was really, really interesting. I did do some shopping, um, but I was quite restrained and useful things. So I bought some wool wash. This is just like a leave-in one, so you can just wash your woolens, soak the woolens in the wash, empty them out, and dry them, and off you go. So I am somebody who regularly forgets not to put my hand knits or any woolens in the tumble dryer, and they end up coming out completely dead. I used to knit a lot of socks, and I stopped knitting socks, um, partially because every time I'd spend all this time knitting a sock and then I'd accidentally tuck it in the tumble dryer and it would come out as a completely useless felted item. So yeah, so this should solve that problem. I also bought some buttons for a cardigan. Let me go and show you that. Actually, I did bring it down with the intention of sharing it with you, but I don't have it right here. Okay, this is the Trouville cardigan that I knit a couple years ago. Did I might have finished it at the beginning of this year. Um, it's a beautiful pattern. I really enjoyed knitting it, but I've never sorted out the buttons. It is a reverse back to front cardigan. So I've actually knit it so that when it's buttoned up, the buttons go at the back and you put it on and on, like on and off, like a sweater. I did intend to make the buttons to go with this using yarn scraps out of the yoke. But it's never happened. And I have all of the button making things, but I've just never done anything with it. So in the meantime, I have bought just a little selection of different coconut buttons to put on so I can wear it because this has been finished for ages. I also bought two prints from a gentleman who collects that way a bit vintage magazines and books and cuts out the pictures and mounts them. A whole different selection, but I really liked these. This one's going to go in my dressing room upstairs, and this Flower Fairies one is actually going to go in my kitchen. Get some frames for them. I'm really excited about those. I did go and visit the Cross Stitch Guild, and picked out a cross stitch pattern that I want to have a go at. The light in here is not great. I'm learning. These are all learnings. It will get better, I promise. And then the final acquisition was from was some yarn from a company called Balmerino, 100% luxurious Scottish wool, so soft it can be worn next to skin. I got that in two colours, a light one and a dark one. And I had a lovely chat with the store holder, from whom this wool is made from her lambs. So it was really nice to talk to her about that. And I chose these colours to go with this pattern, or these two patterns, which is a glove set for fingerless gloves and a beret. So I bought enough weight to be able to knit those garments. She had some samples, and the colour choice she showed you, she actually had a sample of a shawl knit out of the same two colours but in her cashmere. And it was so beautiful, literally the most stunning thing. She didn't have any of the cashmere for sale, but I am going to look her up and see if I can get some for a future date. But only when I've finished knitting those ones. So, that brings me to the end of today's video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope that it's a format that you will want to watch again. If you have any thoughts or feedback, suggestions or recommendations for books, TV, anything, please do just let me drop a comment below. I always really enjoy reading your comments. And next time I see you, it will be December. Nearly the end of the year. We are sort of like rattling towards the end of the year really fast. I can't believe it. But I shall leave you there for now. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.